Okay, welcome back for part two of my top 10 films of 2011. If you missed part one, or I don't know, we'll go over what I've done so far. Number 10, Trust. Number 9, Bridesmaids. And number 8, The Tree of Life. At this rate, it might go into 3 videos, but then again, I did have to set up the whole video for the last one. That took 5 minutes. We'll get into it a little quicker here. Number 7 is The Devil's Double, which is based on the life of Latif Yahia, who was a Iraqi soldier who gets recruited by Uday Hussein, one of Saddam's sons, to play his body double. In much the same way Saddam Hussein had people that would play him, basically to do the dangerous stuff and to confuse people on who the real person is. And this guy Latif was forcibly recruited. He did not want the job, and basically was a slave to this guy for years and witness to horrific stuff. This guy was just trapped in a horrific situation, but it makes for a very good movie, very entertaining, very violent crime drama that intentionally, the director Lee Tamahori, if I'm saying his name right, he purposely said that like he wanted to make a gangster picture. Like, yeah, it's based on real stuff, but at some point he kind of throws out the facts out the window to make sure that he makes an entertaining movie, which works out for the better. It works out really well. I thought it was a lot of fun if you could stomach it. And that'll be a theme for a couple of the movies on my list, but um, just very violent, very fun, and a great performance by Dominic Cooper, who actually gives a pair of performances as both Uday Hussein and Latif, the body double. And not only is it remarkable how well he separates these two characters and makes them distinct, but he is doing like a lot of the movie is them in the same room, like interacting with each other. So as an actor, he would have to shoot one scene or shoot the scene once as one guy, then go back and shoot the scene again as the other guy, and have to remember kind of what he was doing and where he was. And most of the time or all the time he's acting against nothing really. Um, and the trickery and the special effects that they use to pull this off, it's seamless. You would never know. His performance is so good that like once Latif starts impersonating Uday, you're like, man, that's a really good impression, but it's the same guy playing both roles. But that's how good he does it, is that you're like, man, this guy is really good at pulling off the other guy, even though it's the same guy. I think Dominic Cooper, he deserves an Oscar for this. If he doesn't even at least get a nomination, I call bullshit. Um, and I thought Uday was second best screen villain of the year. We're going to talk about the best screen villain of the year soon. Um, Check this movie out if you're into like, organized crime movies. If you're into like the Iraq War, the Hussein regime. If you're into good fucking movies that are violent, check it out. Number 6. Speaking of violent, which there is a lot of violence on my list, but what the fuck can I say? That's just what I like. Number 6 is Warrior, which is a lot of people will call it the MMA film or the UFC film. Uh, Basically, it's two brothers. They're like estranged. They don't talk to each other. They haven't talked to each other since they're kids, and they both enter a mixed martial arts tournament at the same time, kind of unbeknownst to each other that they're both entering for their own different reasons. Um, Mostly money, but they each have their reasons. And wow, just a great fucking movie, man. I had so much fucking fun with Warrior, man. Like I thought it was a better fight film than Rocky, than Cinderella Man, than The Fighter. All of which I enjoy all those movies, but man, I thought this one was like almost better than all of them combined. Cause it has this really good hook where the two brothers are both in the tournament, and there's no real one main character, one protagonist. The protagonist is this broken family, um, which it leads to some really cool things. And then you have Nick Nolte as their alcoholic father, who he's a recovering alcoholic, but apparently he was such a mean son of a bitch that when they were kids, that the one brother split, and both the brothers still hate him, and the father's trying to, like, he's trying to make amends and stuff. And Nick Nolte's just great in it. So it has a really strong, like, family drama in it. Besides the fights, and usually these films kind of like work more like either the drama's better than the fights or the fights are better than the drama. Like I kind of thought with like The Fighter, like the family drama kind of like outshined the fights and stuff. And but with this, man, you have a great family drama, real solid hook, which leads to awesome stuff near the end. But then you also have not just one big climatic fight at the end. You have like an hour of fights at the end, like a series of fights. And another thing I think sets this part apart and makes it better than a lot of other fight films is because it's not a boxing movie. It's because it's MMA. Like now, I'm not a huge MMA fan. I don't watch that stuff. I kind of wonder about guys that get too into that shit. But um, it's just here. It allows for way more brutal fights. Like they're doing crazy shit. They're like breaking each other's arms and shit out there. Like just beating the living shit out of each other in very violent fashion. And it was like almost surprising that this was like a PG-13. I think it was a PG-13 film. I didn't check for sure, but it's gritty both in the fights and in the family drama. So it's pretty surprising like what they got away with. Like there isn't a lot of swearing or there's not a lot of blood and stuff, but it's still it feels adult and raw. Um, just so many things about this. Great performances, solid hook, and the greatest part about the fights is once it gets to the end, you don't know who to root for. And I'm sorry if you feel like that's a spoiler, but they kind of give away like more than that in the trailer. Um, so that's my number six. Number five is Source Code, which this came out early in the year, and it's just really cool, like sci-fi slash like kind of a spin on a time travel type genre. It's it's the second movie from Duncan Jones, who, if you don't know this, he's actually David Bowie's son. And his first film was Moon, which was a really cool sci-fi film that came out a couple years ago. And Source Code, I think it's just as cool as Moon. Like, I really want to see this guy keep making movies in this vein, which are just really uh, creative sci-fi thrillers. Um, the story of this is Coulter Stevens, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. He's like an army pilot who wakes up in this program where um, he has the army or the military wants him to stop a series of terrorist attacks after a train bombing has already happened. This train that's on its way to Chicago, and they figure that the bomber was on the train at some point before it went off, and they think he's going to do a series of attacks. Like this is just his first one throughout the day. So they have this really cool secret experimental operation where they're sending Jake Gyllenhaal's character into the last 8 minutes of that train ride over and over by making him inhabit the consciousness of one of the victims in like an alternate timeline, and until he could find the identity of the bomber. And it kind of has like this Groundhog Day thing going for it, where he's reliving the same 8 moments over and over, and the same thing. He knows all the little beats, every little thing that's going to happen at some point, and that's just really cool, clever premise. And in the process of doing this, as he's trying to figure things out, he actually falls in love with this girl on the train who she knows she knows the person that he's inhabiting, but she obviously doesn't know him, and he kind of falls for her, in these very brief 8-minute things. But he's like falling in love with her, and in the process, he also finds out some pretty devastating secrets about himself. There's a phone call near the end that I thought was one of the most heartbreaking scenes of the year. I just thought it was exciting and pulse pounding and always on the edge of your seat, like quick pace and also intellectually stimulating. I think this might even be better than Moon. It's just a very creative, smart, original film. It is very rare. So that is my number 5, Source Code. Now we're getting down. We're getting down to it, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know if I'll fit these last 4 in 5 minutes. I kind of doubt it. Well, we'll see what we can do. Number 4 is Attack the Block. And this one is pretty easy to sum up what the story is. Like, I think the tagline kind of says it all. It's inner city versus outer space. It's like a bunch of fucking punk kids from like a ghetto in South London. They have to fight to protect the block from these alien invaders, and hopefully become better people themselves. Because when you meet them, they're like they're in a gang. You fucked up, Holmes. You joined a gang. When you first meet them, they mug a nurse who's on her way home. Like, that's the very first scene of the film, and you're like, well, that got you off to a bad start with the main characters. And it's kind of a thing that a lot of people couldn't get over. Like, I know a couple people that just were like, these kids are assholes. Why should I care about them? I got over it because as it goes on, like, you can see they're just kids. Like, I know director Joe Cornish, the guy that did this, he said he got the idea. I forgot what it was. Like, we saw like these kids that are trying to be tough, and he realized that they were as scared as the people that they were terrorizing. It's like inside, like, these kids are they want to be like just normal kids, and they could be funny and stuff in parts of it. Like, I don't know. I did not have a problem. I liked them after a while. I also like that they're always making these jokes that were like pop culture references. Some people got turned off by that, I know, but I thought it was funny that they're referencing FIFA and Gears of War, and they're referencing movies. They're referencing a lot of like the '80s movies that this movie is kind of an homage to. I think some people will have problems with parts of it. Like the parts I've mentioned. I think that some people won't be able to understand what the kids are saying. They have these really thick British accents. Yeah, I could see that. At the same time, you could just turn on the subtitles. I didn't turn on the subtitles for this, but I felt like I caught most of what they were saying. But I could totally see that it's hard to understand them. But if you turn on the subtitles, no problem. I mean, people get hung up on some of these things, but I think most people really enjoy this movie. Thought it was a lot of fun. Uh, it's an homage to '80s adventure flicks in which a group of kids can save the world. Um, and it's 88 minutes. It's short, and it's just 88 minutes of just plain fun. And the aliens in it are great. Some great creature effects on them. They basically look like these black ink blots almost. They're super black. But when they open their mouths, they have shiny green teeth. Like glowing green teeth. And it's really cool looking. It's very simple, but it looks different than, a lot of other movies that make aliens all look the same. Or there's like a couple different variations. There's like the little gray men. There's the guys that the ones that more like monsters. They all kind of look the same. When it comes to alien invasion flicks, I'll give this one fucking. I watched this one a million times over before Cowboys and Aliens again. I don't know. It's just a fun fucking movie. Like I thought it was one of the most fun movies since like The Warriors. It just had that fun vibe like The Warriors. So, anyways, that's up through number 4. Part 3 will conclude this, and it will be my top 3 films of 2011.